Widespread support started to gather around the idea of nuclear disarmament internationally. Within a year, the new President of the United States declared in his inaugural speech his intention to confront the issue of nuclear weapons head-on. And then in Prague in April 2009, Barack Obama gave his landmark speech, in which he set out a blueprint for nuclear disarmament. He committed the United States to take the lead in cooperating with the rest of the world to a step-by-step dismantling and eventual elimination of global nuclear arsenals to zero.
To have a president who is as focused and as committed at such an early stage of his presidency as President Obama certainly creates opportunities that haven't existed for at least the last 10 years.
Momentum is gathering internationally to make the visions and the goals of the Wall Street letter and the Prague speech a reality. Leading experts and decision-makers worldwide are now making common cause behind President Obama's initiative.
Such is the opportunity which is presented here in 2010 by the arrival in the White House of someone with a commitment to multilateral disarmament, that there's an overwhelming need, you might even argue a responsibility, moral responsibility, for collective leadership.
Here in the UK, a top-level group of former Secretaries of State for Defence and Foreign Affairs and Chiefs of Defence Staff has formed to help push forward this agenda for disarmament and encourage others to do the same.
I think it's excellent that we have now got a higher level nuclear group of foreign secretaries, former foreign secretaries, defence ministers, former chiefs of defence staff. We can help because we are a nuclear power still. And I think something is happening in a different way in France and in Germany.
1 year on from his Prague speech, President Obama's initiative faces an important test. In May 2010, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty comes up for its 5-yearly review in New York.
Although the number of weapons in the world has reduced significantly since the end of the Cold War, there still are far too many of these. 95% of them in the hands of 2 countries, in Russia and the United States. So that bargain needs to be revitalised.
We need to make sure that we don't lose the opportunity of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference that's taking place this year, because the whole issue of nuclear disarmament is not simply about nuclear weapons. It's about the proliferation of knowledge. It's about fissile material and how that is proliferated. It's about the security of civil nuclear power. And everyone has a responsibility in doing that.
A year later, as we approach the anniversary of the Prague speech, there's not a whole lot to show in terms of actual accomplishments.
He's up against some extremely powerful vested interests. There is a massive amount of funds invested in and profits being made from the arms industry.
You know, the reason that the world is blocked on taking further steps toward disarmament is because the issues are multifaceted, and they're multidimensional and multinational. That is to say, there are more than one party, and there are usually more than 2 parties.
The hugely weakened Russian conventional forces compared with what they used to be, when set against the conventional capability of the United States, is one of those areas where, in terms of trust and confidence, there's going to be a real worry by some people, some influential people, I'm sure within Russia, who will consider it's important to maintain their nuclear capability while there's such a big imbalance between themselves and the main superpower in conventional terms. And that, of course, may well apply to other countries as well.
What we're dealing with here is a culture of mistrust. And it ratchets up. You notice it in a crisis. You know, one side makes an accusation, the other side defends itself and makes a counter-accusation, just like in family quarrels.
To many, the problems appear insurmountable. But what can ordinary people do to make a difference?
I guess if you feel strongly enough about it, demonstrating like my flatmate does, Don't know if that really gets anyone anywhere though.
I think what we really need is a generation who understand these things, who have integrity, and who will themselves step up.
Writing letters and petitions.
Knowledge of our past history with nuclear weapons.
Campaigning.
The power that they actually have, and you know, the fact that more people will begin to think about how they're a negative influence on the world.
Get knowledge, get involved with organisations that are attaining to educate everyone about what's going on.
We can make films like this.
Given my answers, finding out a few more details of the situation, so we're well armed to have those debates.
You can keep abreast of current developments and listen to informed opinion by going to websites such as the Top Level Group or TalkWorks, the makers of this film.
We do all agree on the goal, and that is global zero, a nuclear weapon-free world.
There is no reason why, in a world of infinite possibilities, where there's political will, driven by an American president who's got new vision, we should not be able to see a world that does not need to rely on nuclear deterrence to keep the peace.
I sometimes think that the best definition of prophecy is simply prophecy is suggesting the possible. And what you have to do now is suggest all the positive possibles that can exist in such a way that you don't have to get a disaster before people take notice.
With all these new signs of a new attitude on the part of people of experience and knowledge and great influence, I do have some hope for the future. We have to have hope for the future, but I think now it is not unrealistic.
I think a future in which there's improved communication between people.
Yeah, a world in peace where countries aren't fighting with each other and they don't have to threaten.
The outdated posturing and power posturing between states is replaced by people having constructive dialogue.
I'd like to see the West take some responsibility and make the first steps of getting rid of some of their nuclear weapons. And yeah, just to see countries setting that example.
I would wish that people could live lives with hope. I think a greater understanding among peoples of different cultures.
A greater culture of sharing and of caring for each other.
And I think we need to try and trust one another, not to attack one another, and not use them as a defence weapon.
In an ideal world, there'd be no such thing as nuclear weapons.
That sort of idea would be cool. They don't have weapons, they've got a peaceful outlook.
It will probably take lots of people of courage and bravery and determination.
Total disarmament, world peace. That's it.